Alright, now that you have all of your tabs open in Photoshop, it's time to begin the editing process. I want to quickly give you an overview of what I hope to do with my picture so that you know what we are working towards. First, we're going to cut out the people. Then I'm going to increase the height of my canvas because I would like to make this building fairly tall. We're going to be about that tall in front of it. And then I would also like to put quite a bit of this blue sky with a helicopter in behind the building. So I'm going to change it from my picture. Also, I will have my explosion. I'm going to change my picture from a landscape into a portrait. I'm going to go ahead and do that first. What you need to do is go to Image, Canvas Size. And if you would like to increase the height yourself, you just choose a number. I'm just going to double it. Now I have about the size of canvas that I would like. Now what you need to do is get yourself ready to edit this photo. We are going to talk a lot about selections, how to make good selections, how to refine a selection, and what are the different methods that you can remove the background when you're looking to edit a photo. First thing we need to do is just go ahead and make a duplicate layer. Okay. I know that in our snapshots we could go back to the original, but it's just helpful to have that background layer. And then go ahead and turn it off so you can't see it. Now that we have this background layer in, what I would like to do is I'm just going to do a really quick selection to begin with. Usually what we're going to do is use a layer mask, which allows us to just cover up the portions we don't want to see. That's a good thing in case we accidentally have cut portions out that we want to add back in. If you just hit delete on the keyboard, those parts are not able to be recovered. Okay, so we're going to learn how to make a layer mask. But to be honest, this part, I know there's nothing I'm going to do with that. I'm not going to use any of this background. So I'm going to do a really quick basic selection using my lasso tool. I mean very basic and trying to just stay really far outside of the people. Okay, I've encircled us, so what I want to do is I want to hit select, inverse, and then I would like to hit delete. Should give you your black and white checked background and give you the opportunity to begin refining your selection around the people themselves. Go ahead and hit Control D. Okay, and then what I would like for you to do is zoom in. Whew, not quite that much. Zoom in so that you can see a little bit more closely. We're going to start with the magnetic lasso tool, and what we're going to do for layer masks is we're going to select the parts that we want to keep. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around the people, all the way down here. I'm going to take out the spaces between our legs, and then we are going to use a layer mask. So we are trying to get from this edge right here all the way over to the edge of the jeans, and then we're going to connect the line. Remember, the magnetic lasso tool relies on contrast. Okay, the contrast between the colors. As you can see, the color of my pants and the color of the asphalt are very similar. So the contrast there is going to be difficult. I'm just trying to get a rough selection, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Remember with the magnetic lasso tool that you click to make nodes. Okay, those nodes are going to continue to read the contrast. If those nodes are off in any way, what you need to do is you can hit the backspace if you want, and it'll go back nodes. Clicking the mouse around areas that are having trouble selecting is also really helpful. But essentially, we're just getting a rough idea. As you can see, the places around my hair are not reading it very well, so I'll probably have to come back to those. But for right now, I'm just going to work my way all the way around, clicking with those nodes, not worrying too terribly much about how perfectly I've got it. I'm just trying to get that basic click. I'm going to hit backspace a couple because I missed a little bit of the hat there. I'm going to make sure I click a lot in that area. That helps create less bad spots. So all the way around, really clicking a lot, especially where places there's not a lot of contrast. If you need to pause it during this time, I highly suggest that because this is a process that may take you a little bit longer. If you have really terrible selections you need to use, let's say somehow you ended up in there, you didn't go back, that's okay, continue going. What you're going to do is come along the bottom, okay, and it's going to give you a pretty jagged edge anyways. So the first thing you're going to want to do is switch to your polygonal lasso, And you're just going to add in the bottom by holding Shift on the keyboard, which will allow you to add to your selection. And remember, when adding or subtracting from the selection, you need to encircle it. Okay, you can't just go down the line. You have to come all the way back and reconnect. So right over here, I need to come, create the line I want, and then I'm encircling the area that I want to add back. Double click. Now that we have our selection, we need to do a little bit of refinement before creating our layer mask. So what you're going to do is switch over to your polygonal lasso, okay? And then you're going to need to zoom in to do this part. And what you're going to do is zoom in and just kind of scroll and look for any areas that you may have left out, little portions that don't quite look right, something that might have been left out. Looking at areas like that, you can go ahead and make a basic selection. Here is very difficult to do, but what you're doing is you're just going to go all the way around the piece, and I'm going to do my best there. I'm going to use a tool in layer masks to kind of soften the edge around Bona's hair, but for right now I just want to make sure I don't get any of it deleted out. I'm just trying to get a basic selection, and now I'm refining it by going in and making sure I didn't leave any parts out or add any parts in that I didn't want. Okay? So be very picky. Don't take 10 years, but do take your time and go around. I'm going to look for areas like right there. I don't want that added in. I don't want this area around his ear. And then take your time and go all the way around the piece, refining that edge. Alright, at this point I have refined my selection. I've gone around and used my polygonal lasso to add any little pieces back in and take any little pieces out that I didn't want to use. I do want to remind you, if for some reason you're running out of time and you don't have the ability to finish your selection, remember you have the option to save the selection. Under selection you can say save selection, and you can say a team or people, whatever you need to say, and it'll save it in your channels. Okay, so if you need to do that so you can come back to it tomorrow, then go ahead and do that now, or if you're getting towards the end of class, remember that's how you save it. So once you have that refined edge, what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer mask. And as I said before, we've selected what we want to keep because the layer is going to mask everything else besides that. What I do want to point out is to make sure that you went in and took out the selections between the people's legs. So I'm going to just do that quickly, and I'm guessing most of you forgot to do it as well. So take your time, use your polygonal lasso, and get those selections taken care of. You can start with your magnetic lasso if you want, but there's not much contrast there between the coat and the asphalt, and not much contrast between the pants and the asphalt. So I suggest just using your polygonal lasso. I'm going to take this side out as well. Those are the little details that make, that make your piece more professional looking, more like someone who knows what they're doing with Photoshop. So do take your time to do that. Any little places that you see an overlap, take the time to go back and refine those. I'm going to add I'm going to add back this last little section right between my leg and Mike's legs, right down here. I'm sure we could easily leave it out if it looks like it's just a bright spot, but I think it will make a difference in the end, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just continuing to hit Alt because remember the outside of my selection has been made, and so I'm subtracting this from the selection that's already there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our layer mask. Layer masks are located right down at the bottom of the Layers tab. It's a half square, square with a circle in the middle, and if you hover over it, it says Add Layer Mask. Go ahead and click on it, and you'll notice that the background disappears. That layer mask is now located right there. If I want to be working on the picture itself, you have to make sure you have the white arrows around the picture, not the layer mask. If I wanted to disable it, I just right click and say disable. It's not gone. I just click on it and it comes back. But this is a much more effective way of editing as opposed to deleting, and I'm going to show you why. What we can do to refine our selection even more is we can come over here, make sure we're on our layer. You'll notice it turned these to black and white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on that area where Bona's hair was at, and I'm going to show you a trick of what you can do. In this layer mask mode, as opposed to using the selection tools, what you're going to use is the paintbrush. Okay? When the paintbrush is set on black, it's going to take areas away. When it is set on white, it's going to add areas back in. Because remember, we're not editing the photo, we're editing the layer mask itself. So what I'm going to do is get the area around Bona's hair. I'm going to use the white and add it back in just so I can have a clearer idea. Then I'm going to go to my black tool and I'm going to just lightly click in the main areas. So I want to get those out. Okay, and it's a little bit more of a fluffy selection as opposed to that harsh polygonal lasso. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the opacity and the flow of my brush. Okay, let's just turn them both down to 70. I'm going to continue erasing it out, but this way it's a softer erase. It doesn't make a really hard edge. And this is the way that you should go about editing your layer mask. You can also change the type of brush you're using if you're trying to. I could come over here and change it to maybe more of a brush like that. So it takes out less of it, just takes out portions. But this is where layer masks are really crucial because they add to and help with the way that you can select things. You're not limited to just the magic wand and the polygonal lasso, which is a good thing considering those have very limited capabilities. Okay? So I'm going to continue to feather around his hair. Our hair is pretty straight, so I'm not too worried about our hair. But if you have a picture with someone with curly hair, or just maybe a lady who has flyaways, this is always a good way of doing that. I'm going to turn the opacity back up. Just going to get this edge right here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to my white. I'm going to use this hardness scale because that's a really harsh edge right there. And I want to make sure all that is back in. The coat edge of Mike's coat there and there. I'm going to make sure none of those got deleted out. Now you have a layer mask. We are also going to refine the whole edges. Everything that we have right now is pretty rough and it's pretty harsh. And I'm going to have you create a new layer just so you can see how harsh this edge is. What you're going to do is come down here to your layers tab, say create new layer, drag that layer 1 between the two background layers, and then just take any color, it doesn't matter. Use your paint bucket tool like you know how to do at this point. And you can see how harsh those edges are. So what I would like to do is come over here to my layer mask again, and I'm going to come to select, and I'm going to say refine mask. By refining the mask, I'm able to smooth out the edges just a little bit. I want to put in my view mode, I'm going to do overlay just so that I can see the color a little bit better. You can try these different ones. There's different ways of doing it, but I like the overlay one. And then I'm going to smooth the edges, but I'm also going to do just a slight feathering that will help soften it. You got to be really careful. It doesn't look like it's doing anything, but it definitely is. This shift edge, if I moved it all the way in, see how it feathers all the way in? If I move it all the way out, I end up with a lot of background information. So what you want to do for this shift edge is you want to have a little bit of negative, just slightly, not too much, maybe -5 is probably the top that you want to go. Once you're happy with that feathering, then you hit OK. Okay. Give it time to process, and then we can get rid of our layer 1 green. And we now have a selection around us. So I suggest you go ahead and save at this point. If you have time to go on to the next tutorial, we will be using these other pictures and doing some selections on those.